for joining us this evening for our panel on renewable energy in Maui County, hosted by the Sierra Club Maui Group. With us this evening, I've got Colton Ching, who is Senior Vice President of Planning and Technology at Hawaiian Electric. He's from Maui originally, and he's responsible for planning Hawaiian Electric's 100% renewable energy grid and for the procurement of cost-effective, reliable, and resilient renewable generation for Hawaiian Electric. We've got Fred Riddell, who's the Executive Director of the Hawaii Clean Power Alliance. HCPA advocates for renewable energy at scale to help the state meet its energy goals in a cost-effective manner. Previously, Fred was the Energy Commissioner for the County of Maui and owned his own business for asset development and management. We've got Brad Albert, who's been involved in distributed solar in Hawaii for 19 years. In 2002, he founded Rising Sun Solar, installed Maui's 7th grid-tied system. Brad also co-founded the Hawaii PV Coalition and currently works with Swell's Energy Home Battery Rewards Virtual Power Plant Program, which is a new program in the state. And we've got Todd Yamashita, the 4th generation Molokai resident and father of 2. Todd is working with the Molokai community on a community-based renewable energy project that we'll hear more about later this evening. My name is Zach McNish. I was born and raised on Maui, and I'm an attorney, and I work in renewable energy also. And we've also got with us Lucien Denai, who's the chair of the Sierra Club Maui Group. Todd is working with the Molokai community on a community-based renewable energy project that we'll hear more about later this evening. My name is Zach McNish. I was born and raised on Maui, and I'm an attorney. I work in renewable energy also. And we've also got with us. All right. Thanks, everyone. And let's have Colton start us off. What we're going to do is we're going to do about 8 to 10 minutes of slides and presentation from each of our panelists, and then we're going to open it up to questions for the rest of the meeting. So, Colton, why don't you start? And I think the rest of us can turn off our cameras while Colton is presenting.
Sure. Just a quick audio check, Zach, to make sure y'all can hear me and that you guys can see my screen okay?
Yep, we're good. Thanks, Colton.
Okay, great. So first of all, thank you to the Maui Sierra Club for including myself and Hawaiian Electric in this forum. Really looking forward to the questions and answers later and hearing the presentations from Fred, Brad, and Todd that's coming up after me. I'll keep my presentation very short. Zach had asked me to focus my material on where Maui is today, or where Maui County is today in our renewable pursuit, and what's ahead of us in the upcoming years. So it wouldn't be a renewable energy presentation if we didn't start off by talking about where we are today, or at least as of the end of last year, in our renewable portfolio standard. And so for the County of Maui, so the combination of Maui, Molokai, and Lanai's total energy portfolio, the Maui County ended the year of 2020 with an RPS of just under 51%. And you can see in this chart here that the major contributions for renewable energy for Maui County came from grid scale wind resources, accounting for 26% of the RPS, and customer cited distributed energy resources, that's what DER stands for, accounting for about 23% of the renewable portfolio standards. Now, one thing to note in here, I think as many of you know, the state renewable portfolio standard law has a bit of a quirk in it, where the RPS percentage is a percentage calculation of total renewable energy generation divided by total utility sales. And so distributed energy resources affects both the numerator and denominator. And that means an RPS number doesn't necessarily tie to a renewable energy generation percentage is the total amount of generation, in this case for Maui County. So keep that in mind as I jump to, and by the way, before I do that, I do want to say that Maui County led the Hawaiian Electric companies last year in our RPS numbers. Great increase over the past several years from distributed resources, adding to the 72 megawatts of wind, and then more recently with the pair of grid scale PV systems, which although accounts for a small percentage in these numbers here, are our most recent large scale additions to the island. Now, that's last year, and this is a tally for the entire year of 2020, right? So this is not an average, this is not what our energy mix looks like on any given day or month, but what it was in total for the entire year of 2020. Now, if we fast forward a couple of years and look into our crystal ball to see where we believe Maui County will be in just a few years with the new projects that I will touch upon a little bit, and I think Fred's going to cover as well, combined with the additional distributed systems that perhaps Brad will touch upon, in total, that's going to cause or create a significant shift and change in that energy portfolio. Oops. So a 50.8% RPS, fast forward just a couple of years from now, at the end of 2024, we expect to be at an RPS of 100, basically 100%, just over that. And again, the number is high in part because of the way in which the renewable portfolio standard is calculated in our state law. But you can see in here over the next couple of years, primarily added in 2023, but in 2024, we'll have a full year's contribution from the vast majority of our new projects coming online. You can see that the RPS will increase dramatically, essentially double in the next 2.5 years. And that's going to be coming from a combination of a significant amount of new grid scale renewables, primarily solar plus storage, as well as a continued growth in our distributed energy resources. And that can be customer sited residential or commercial photovoltaic systems, or residential and commercial PV plus storage systems as well. And so I think we have a lot to look forward to on Maui as we see this rapid increase in renewables on the island, and then the corresponding decrease in the amount of fossil fuels that we use to power our county, and the corresponding reduction in carbon and greenhouse gas emissions that's part of that combustion process. So rapid changes that we foresee. Now, again, our RPS is a measure of how our energy looks like for an entire year. I wanted to share with the audience what a day looks like, what a typical day looks like. And so, this is, we picked a day that was pretty good from a solar resource standpoint, and decent from a wind standpoint. And you can see in here, the photovoltaic generation, mostly distributed generation, shown here in yellow. The wind generation here shown in blue, and the balance made up from oil fire generation. And so this is how the system, in this case, just for Maui, looked like on April 29th of last year. And you can see the vast majority of the energy consumed on the island of Maui in the middle of the day came from solar plus wind, especially in the early to mid-afternoon period. But in other times of the day, right, in the early evening and overnight, the contributions as a percentage from renewable energy generation was, of course, lower. Now, this is typical of what we see today on the Maui system, but I wanted to share with you to kind of contrast what the grid on Maui will look like based upon our modeling of how Maui's grid will operate with these new additional renewable resources. And that's shown by this chart in here. And you can see In this chart here, the continued production from wind resources. You can see the continued production from distributed PV systems. But what's added in the next couple of years are these PV and battery systems, as well as one proposed standalone storage system that will serve a significant part of the grid and serving our customers' energy needs. And you can see as a result of that, that fossil generation on the system on Maui on a typical day, this is a day that we're forecasting for August of 2024, where there is almost no fossil generation that would be running that day if our forecast of wind and solar production here for this day ends up being accurate. And you can see that there are going to be other days where that fossil production may even be less than what's shown in here. Other days where perhaps it's not so sunny or it's not so windy, where solar and wind production may be lower. And the difference would be made up through a combination of stored energy from the battery systems from the previous day, or additional dispatch from fossil generation. And so you can see this very different dynamic of what we would see on a day in terms of what's going to be generating electricity to serve everyone's use for that electricity. And that's it. I'll stop there and be happy to answer any questions you folks may have about any of the material that I've shared.
All right, thank you, Colton. Let's go through, I think, all the presentations first, and then we will take questions. So I think, who did I have next on the schedule? I think I had Fred next. So Fred, why don't you go ahead and talk about some of the utility scale projects?
I will, and I'll keep it nice and brief. Give me a moment to get set up. And I'll go to here. All right, hopefully you can see my screen. So, well, thank you, for having me at this, presentation. I really appreciate it. I did want to, just give you a little bit more background on me and how I got into renewable energy. The Sierra Club Maui actually played a meaningful role in me moving more towards renewable energy. I started my career in nuclear power and then was doing gas combined cycle work, where I started working on some solar hybrids in the middle 2000s. And a member of the Sierra Club Maui, Lance Holter, actually called me up, had me come out to Hawaii. This is around 2005, 2006. And we were doing presentations and looking to do large scale renewable energy, in Hawaii. And I think I was maybe 15 years, bad timing. So now, yes, as noted earlier, I'm the executive director for the Hawaii Clean Power Alliance. I was previously working with the County of Maui as the Energy Commissioner and working to try to help promote, cost-effective ways for the County of Maui to move towards renewable energy. So let me just jump through this quickly. A little bit about the organization. Really, we're to help accelerate renewable energy, as already noted, in such. So first, then, about the projects that are on Maui. And taking this from the public data, and just to make sure that everybody that's out there, watching this, you can find this data on HECO's website. You can find it through the state, and it's very up to date. So this is where we're pulling this information from. But as Colton noted, there are several large-scale photovoltaic and battery projects that are coming online in the next years in short order. And those include these projects. The first one being, noted there is a solar PV and a storage project. And that one being about 60 megawatts, which is a very large project, and about 240 megawatt hours of storage, or what's equivalent to, say, 4 hours in a more simple way to look at that. And then also, the B project here in this area here, another large scale project And so what I included on this chart for everybody to see is that these are very cost effective for Hawaii and for and for the price that these projects are able to sell at. They're generally less than 10 cents per kilowatt hour, which goes into the utility, which is very cost effective and competitive with fossil fuel generation. So why is utility scale an important part of the mix? As it was shown by Colton in the pie chart, where there's DER, there's wind, which is of course a utility scale portion, but now we're looking at the solar and batteries. And why it really matters, you can see in this chart that that NREL, the National Renewable Energy Lab, tracks all the way back to 2010. This is the decline in the cost of photovoltaics, not showing also the battery component and such. When I was first coming to Maui back before this 2010, 2005, you can imagine that this was even higher. This price has really dropped dramatically, and the utility scale fixed or one axis tracking, you could see that price is dropping below $1 per kilowatt. And this is an extremely low price compared to $5, $6, $7 or even $12, which some projects have been originally built on. And being able to get that at scale is really a good part of the mix for for the state and for Maui. I did, though, as Colton was noting, you're going to move quickly into, Maui will be moving quickly into having a high renewable energy fraction. And what may be next, and some things that I'm interested in to help bring to Hawaii and show how there'll be new ideas out there, will be stuff like green hydrogen, green methanol. And I distinguish those because there's also blue methanol, if folks aren't familiar with that, and blue hydrogen, where the carbon in that process is just sequestered. There's gray products of this, and there's black products of it, where it would be, say, all pure fossil fuels. So those are driving quickly to a cost competitive price. The goals that the Department of Energy has is $1 per kilogram on green hydrogen. Right now, it's probably about $6. So you could see from the curves I was just showing, for that product to become cost competitive, it pretty much has to do what photovoltaics have already done. And then, as Colton was noting, that middle of the day in time, the next challenges for the grid, we believe, will be cost effectively managing the grid stability and being able to dispatch and service load. And we think that there will be companies coming in time that there's a lot of investment currently in long duration energy storage. And some of those are very interesting, like Malta, where their technology uses standard equipment that is integrates well with a grid, and then uses long duration energy storage, in this case a molten salt, or Form Energy, which uses a different battery technology than lithium ion technology. So we'll see into the future that there'll be new technologies. And just thank you very much. And if anyone wanted to get in contact with me, you can reach me here at hawaiicleanpower.org. You could replace the info with Fred, either one will work.
All right, thank you, Fred. Brad, why don't you go ahead?
Take myself off mute here and see if I can do this right. Tell me if this looks good.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm calling my presentation Home Solar 3.0, the digital grid. And I'm going to be talking today about a new program that's available on Maui called the Home Battery Rewards Program. And the reason I'm calling this the Home Solar 3.0 is 1.0 was net metering. And that was when you could export power at retail and no one really had a battery that was grid tied for the most part. And then when that program ended, everyone started installing solar plus storage. And I would call that 2.0. And 3.0 is now the ability to tie all those systems together, make them visible to the utility and dispatchable to the utility if they choose, if those system owners choose to join the home battery rewards program or others like it. So as Colton was saying, as we add more and more renewables onto the grid, the grid becomes a renewable dominant grid, and we need new technologies and new approaches to balance the energy supply and demand on the grid. Because unlike with what was formerly like the firm power plant generation, there would be varying degrees of demand on the grid, and the energy supply would meet those demands. But now you have varying energy supply as well as demand. And this is all possible, but it just takes more tools and more technology. So this quote is from Clean Technica, and there's a really great link at this site that talks about spinning reserves and how inverter-based technologies can do the same thing or do it differently. I suggest watching it. It's only like 4 minutes long. But in this whole article, if you click on the other link, is really great as well. But because renewable dominant grids are so recent, there exist few systematic methods to schedule renewables for multi-timescale grid stability. As a result, most operators still treat renewable energy as non-dispatchable and uncontrollable when scheduling. One thing is certain, renewables alone can provide the services necessary to maintain the grid. Operators just need the tools to properly manage them. And the program that I'm working on with Swell is one of those tools. And it's called the Home Battery Rewards Program. So I thought it would be good to just start with some definitions and acronyms, so this doesn't all sound crazy to everyone. There's something called grid services, and there's something called a grid services purchasing agreement, or GSPA. The program that my company is working on was awarded the GSPA 2 contract. And a GSPA is when a utility sponsored program that partners with a program administrator like Swell, the company I'm working for currently, to use aggregations of energy systems to serve various grid needs. And sorry for just reading these, but that seems to be the best way to do these definitions. A virtual power plant, or a VPP, is a decentralized network of energy generation, storage, and flexible load resources that can be operated by a single system and serve the electrical grid. Swell is aggregating residential solar plus storage systems together as VPPs. And then the Home Battery Rewards Program is the program that that our company is doing along with HECO, and the program is administered by Swell and its local partners to deliver 3 separate grid services from a fleet of residential solar plus storage systems to the grid. And those services are capacity build, capacity reduce, and fast frequency response. That's a bit of an alliteration there. So a little bit about the Home Battery Rewards Program. It's a 5-year program. It's multi-island, and it's multi-grid. It has the 3 different grid services for residential customers with a solar plus storage system paired to a Tesla Powerwall battery or batteries. Customers sign up to enroll in the program through Swell's local partners and are paid monthly by HECO while they're enrolled. I say this later on, but there's no cost to enroll, and you can unenroll at any time. So there's no risk for a customer to join the program. The location of the program is on Oahu, Maui, and the Big Island. The program technically started in July, and the contract term is 5 years, but you can always unenroll if you choose to. Our target goal is 6,000 unique systems statewide, and the program on Maui is currently limited to 512 or 520 customers. So Maui has the fewest number of systems, and we're hoping to add more to our program on Maui in the future. but there's only 1,200 total existing battery systems roughly on Maui today. So this would be like, if we were only signing up existing batteries, this would be close to half of the customers on Maui, to give you some idea. So this is going into a little bit more detail about the program. You get more value for your battery by joining the program financially. There's no risk and there's no loss of backup capabilities. And so to dig into those things a little bit more detail, you get more savings. And the reason you get those savings is that you are getting more value, more financial upside by enrolling your battery than you would by self-supplying yourself with the energy from the battery. And so customers will get the full value of the incentive on their HECO bill listed every month. And then the monthly incentive will reduce the charges on their bill, including the minimum bill. So a customer can now actually get a zero bill. And if the incentive for the program exceeds the monthly bill, then HECO will actually include a check in the bill at each month, and you get paid for your enrollment in the program in actual cash. So for the first time in Hawaii, if you own a solar system, you can not only reduce or eliminate your bill, but you can get paid money. So it's pretty exciting for customers. And again, there's no risk to join the program, and the backup capabilities remain the same in your system. So if there was to be a grid outage, then Swell and HECO no longer have any control over your battery. You operate off grid as you normally would. The program is really helping, as we said in the first slide, to help HECO and the state reach its renewable energy goals. And so thousands of Tesla Powerwall systems will join together to form a distributed power resource that can deliver megawatts of power on demand. And by enrolling in the customers are really having a meaningful contribution to the 100% renewable energy goal. When customers would have a solar system just on their home that wasn't interconnected or didn't give the utility the ability to see and dispatch that energy as needed, it was helping, but it was not helping nearly to the degree that it would if you enroll in the program.
So, Brad, thanks for that. One quick question we got is, how many people so far on Maui are enrolled in the program?
There's over 100 people on Oahu enrolled in the program. On Maui, I don't believe we actually have launched the program, or we may have like this week. So there was a few test customers, like 5, but it's current, like we're literally launching now. So the timing of this is very opportune for people to learn about this program. Should I keep going?
Yep.
Okay, so here's the incentives, okay? And I highlighted the annual incentive for 2 Powerwalls because we assume that the average system is about 7.5 kilowatts and has 2 Powerwalls, or roughly 26 kilowatt hours of battery storage attached to it. And so you notice there's a range. And the reason there's a range is that this is not a one-size-fits-all program. When a customer says, I'd like to enroll, then we are able to view through the energy gateway on a Tesla Powerwall the historical data of that system. So we can see the system essentially back to when it was turned on, and we can then see, based on the location of the customer, the tariff they're in, the amount of PV they have on their system, and the number of Powerwalls, how much power they can contribute as needed to the grid. And so we would then say this customer with 2 Powerwalls is, say, worth $1,000 a year, or $100 a month, and HECO would then accept that customer based on that estimate, and we would enroll them, and the customer would then hear back from us and then see on their first bill the value of their system. So in other words, it's really unique to each customer, but it falls within this range, and it falls within the range for a variety of reasons based on each individual system's ability to supply power. The range is based on different tariffs as well. And the range is also the net benefit you get from the program. So you do experience energy losses because you're not self-supplying yourself with energy all the time as you would normally with a battery system, or as most people do with their battery systems. And therefore there's losses. And this range is an estimate of not only your benefit in the program, but your benefit net of the losses. The last thing I'd mention is that should you have more than 3 Powerwalls, for each additional Powerwall, you're earning between $40 and $60 a month per Powerwall. So there's not that many customers out there, but there's no limit to the system size you could have. The only limitation to join the program is you have to be a residential customer. I'll go on. So this is, I think, my last slide, and just sort of a review. There's like really attractive financial rewards for customers to enroll in the program. An additional benefit I didn't speak of is because we, or Swell as the program aggregator, is obligated to provide energy to the grid in certain amounts. We are very motivated to make sure your system's working. So we're looking at it. We would notify the customer as well as the installer if the system's not working, and they would hopefully go out and repair it. If the system's working better than we thought, then we would increase the value and propose that value to the utility as well. So we're looking at all the systems, and this is an added service that we feel is valuable to customers, to really have someone making sure their system's working all the time as it should. And we're also then trying to optimize your value that, you know, it's sort of your savings and your system at all times to meet the needs of the program as well as the needs of your home. And it is helping the renewable energy goals of the state, as we discussed. There's no risk, you can opt out at any time. And if the grid goes down, you have the same backup capabilities from your battery as you normally would. So I think that's the end, yep, of my presentation. If there's any questions, I can answer them.
All right, thanks, Brad. Let's hear from Todd, and then we'll take a bunch of questions.
I need to stop sharing, sorry. Yep.
How's that look, gang?
Looks good.
Sorry, there we go. Okay, aloha from Molokai, everybody. Just a little bit more detail about myself. So I'm here first and foremost as a father of 2 young boys, 8 years old and 10 years old. And I'm also the publisher of the Molokai Dispatch, and I do outreach and with the monk seals here on Molokai for Hawaii Marine Animal Response. I'm a Hokulea Voyager, and you know, mostly I'm a volunteer in this space, and like all the people who work with me, we're grateful that we have this space time in this space with all of you energy experts and everybody else out there. So, you know, mahalo for having us here. Let's see, I'm gonna get to my next slide. Okay, so kind of give you an idea of kind of our genesis story, maybe. You know, about 15 years ago, there was made big news that there was a plan to build about 50 gigantic windmills on Molokai and pump the electricity over to Oahu via undersea cable. And the same plan was to include Lanai as well in that. And it really started the discussion here on Molokai, you know, what is energy? How much do we need? And, you know, what does it mean when we have to start going outside of our ahupua'a and outside of our, off of our island to get what we need? And fast forward to this day, and, we've continued on as a group, and to this day, we've continued on. For the past 2-3 years, we've been really intensive working together. We've surrounded ourselves with energy experts and other volunteers. And the question, why are we here? Why are we doing this as a community? And so we look at some of these grid scale projects, and we look at places like Waianae and Kahuku, and where some of these renewable projects are going, and they're awesome. Don't get me wrong. When we see these huge solar projects and stuff like that, I think it makes sense. It's like, okay, that's what's going to carry us in the future. But the hard part is, for most of us, we know that those aren't necessarily for us. And those projects that are being placed in our communities don't directly benefit us. And so we're really lucky. Last year, the utility, HECO, announced CBRE, which is community-based renewable energy. And it's a renewable energy program. And they announced one for Molokai. And basically the idea is that instead of just this, grid scale project that's built by developers and whatnot, no matter who builds it, in that project, there's built-in community benefits. And that would allow grid scale projects like these that are being built in neighborhoods like Molokai, like Kahuku and Waianae, potentially to directly benefit the people who live there. And so this is just a really, really basic kind of idea of what's going on here. And I guess you could call it like virtual solar, right? So again, when we see these big grid scale projects, even in my neighbors, I look at people who own their houses and they can afford rooftop solar, stuff like that. Small kind jealousy, but a lot of people are renters. About 1/3 of Molokai people rent here. And so, for us, we're always looking at the small guy here on Molokai, who's being left out. And, so community-based solar, the community-based renewable energy, is potentially really beneficial because, say, Auntie who lives across the street, she's renting her house and she wants 6 solar panels to cut a good portion of her energy bill. She can't build it on her rooftop because she don't own her house. In this program, we can say, Auntie, we're building a solar field with a bunch of panels, and we can put 6 panels with your name on it. And right now we're working with we're working on an idea of having the benefit of those panels being reflected on the energy bill. So when Auntie go see her electric bill, she can see her 6 panels represented, and the discount, the energy that her panels are generating, and to her benefit. Yeah. So anyway, that's just kind of a really simplified idea of what we're doing. So to give you a scale, kind of what size we're looking at, this is not a huge project. So basically it's 2.75 megawatts. That accounts for about 20% of Molokai's energy needs. And so this isn't huge, but this would be our first grid scale renewable energy project on Molokai. So this is for us an exciting step in the right direction. There are about, I think, 2,700 households on the island. We're hoping that this program will reach at least 50% of those. And we're not quite sure where the utility bills savings are going to be, but we hope that it's going to be something meaningful, at least 10%, hopefully more than that. Sorry, I'm just going to go back for a second. So again, to kind of give you an idea, who we are, what we are. When CBRE was announced by utility last year, when this community-based renewable energy plan was announced last year, our community group that meets regularly said, oh my gosh, wow, what a great idea. We love this project. And instead of letting an outside developer that won't necessarily understand our community come and build here on our behalf. We ask the question, can we do this on our own behalf? Can we build, can we bid on this project? Can the community own it? And that's what we're navigating right now. We're lucky enough to be sitting, we have a front seat with the utility, with the PUC. This is one of the first times that our community, I think any community in the area of energy has been included at the front end of a project this early on. And you know, to be there, I think for us is groundbreaking in a lot of ways. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. We didn't get here alone. You know, understanding energy is a steep learning curve, and there's a group of us here. You know, probably about a half dozen, maybe about a dozen people here that meet several times a week, and we're all volunteers. What we've done is we've surrounded ourselves with energy professionals that can help us understand, you know, what our energy landscape is, what an RFP is, how to apply for it, how to be competitive. And so right now our success is being determined by our ability to engage and inform our community. And that's based on our own knowledge, based on what we know and what we can learn from our community partners. And so we have Shake Energy Collaborative, they're women-owned public benefit corporation. And we also have partnered with Mana Pacific, and they're a social impact company and also a benefit corporation. So we've really put a lot of energy into selecting partners that reflect the values of our community, and also share the goals of our project. We got our first grant from Maui County just this year. We incorporated this year in 2021 as a co-op. And again, we chose the co-op model. We're a customer co-op because, again, we want to be community owned. We want 100% of our proceeds made from the project to benefit our subscribers. And that model just worked really well for us. So again, our first grant comes from the county of Maui. We're super grateful. And we're putting that money into workforce development so that, and again, this is just the first, the very start of renewable energy on Molokai. So if you look forward or look ahead towards 100% grow of our renewable energy, someone is going to have to be putting those panels in. Somebody's going to have to be building these projects. Someone is going to have to be maintaining them and upkeeping them. And of course, there's no better community to care for their own projects, to care for their own renewable energy systems than our people here on Molokai. So we're putting that money into, we've partnered with Arizona State University. We're going to be learning about microgrids and being microgrid certified. We're also doing workforce development, hands-on kind of stuff. We've received over 300 panels from Maui, from our partners with Rising Sun. And these panels are going to be used not only to teach our people here how to build solar and renewable energy systems, but we're also going to be building off-grid systems for the people here on Molokai that don't have a connection to energy. So that's just a long way of saying that this CBRE project, Community-Based Renewable Energy Project, is our start, our foot in the door. But we hope that this is the beginning of a lot of important things. And I say important because here on Molokai, it just takes everything that we have just to get through the month by month. And for us, if we can, see some kind of benefit on our bill, if the people who, don't have the time or energy to help, to help build something bigger and better, if we can help do that on their behalf, then that's something that we're in it to do. And so I hope that gives you a little bit more information about some of the work that's being done here on Molokai. We're really excited about it. Again, we're not energy professionals, and we're happy to share this because not only is this exciting for us and a step in a right direction, but as far as we can tell, statewide, we need to get the communities up front. We need not just consultation about what kind of projects are being built in our communities. We need to ask our communities for consent. Is it okay to be building these projects? And our communities need to be asking, are these projects beneficial to us? Is this something that can be built, that should be built here, that will help us grow our communities? So thank you so much, you guys, for this space. Mahalo.
Thanks, Todd. Okay, why don't everyone turn our cameras back on. And we've got some questions from Facebook, and I'll work through these as they come in here. So I think the first question, Brad, are the batteries only for homeowners and sadly don't help renters? If you're a renter, is there anything you can do with Swell, or is it only for homeowners?
So this, this is really early days. This is the first program like it. Well, actually, there was a GSPA 1. I'm not sure if it was on Maui. It was on Oahu, but for a much more limited number of customers. This is not a pilot, but it is one of the first programs. So I think the answer there is not at this time, but we want as many people to participate as possible. And there may be some community-based thing like this in the future. I think we're still, like I said, really early days here, and just looking to incorporate the existing resources on people's houses for the benefit of the grid. But that doesn't mean that it can't be expanded in the future somehow.
Okay, thanks, Brad. Colton, what can Hawaiian Electric do differently or more to expedite the application, permitting, and approval for distributed generation for photovoltaic solar systems on individuals' houses so that they can decrease their electric bills that way?
Yep. Okay, thanks for the question. So Maui and actually all of the major islands that we serve, we have an option in our application process for a range of distributed programs where a customer working with a contractor can follow what's called a quick connect process. So rather than the traditional process where very early on in a customer working with a developer, a contractor to build a system, early in the process was the step to come to Hawaiian Electric, submit an application, get approval, and that approval process sort of became a gate within that customer process. Quick Connect backends that utility application process pretty much to the very end, and allows the customer and a contractor under certain circumstances to contract with each other, go through the local county, whether it's Maui County or Honolulu City and County process to get the necessary building permits and go through the steps. There's several steps along the way to design and build that facility. And then the utility application process is really back-ended. And the solar industry, the local solar industry worked with us to establish this process to really actually give an option to help address the question that we just got asked, right? Where you can expedite the process, especially the early on process, get a system started, get it built, get it started and running without having to go through a utility application at the very beginning.
Thanks, Colton. Okay, another question here. If the grid goes down and needs to be restarted, can that happen from a backup battery system? If that can, does that mean we can phase out diesel power plants sooner?
Want me to take down?
I think that's probably a Colton and Fred, one of you guys.
Yeah, so I think the question is really about can battery backup systems that are distributed provide that black start capability. It can definitely, home or business's battery, like those that are part of Swell's program, can definitely be used by the individual homeowner business to allow their home to get energized if there's a power outage. So it can black start their facility. But the technology is not there yet to take these systems and back up and aggregate to start up an entire grid. Having said that, though, the new renewable energy projects, specifically the stage 2 projects that we are contracting on all of our islands, including on the island of Maui, we put in a requirement in there that they do have what's called black start capability. And so these PV and battery systems or standalone battery systems are required to have the necessary functions should there be an island-wide blackout to be the basis to start the grid back up again. And it was interesting really to see it in Brad's presentation, but he made reference to this Clean Technica article. And it's something that folks from Maui should really be proud of, because that article references a Department of Energy study where we looked at what can be done on the island of Maui, because it's going to be the first of the islands in the state of Hawaii that could potentially be run with only inverter-based generation. So wind and solar and batteries that use an inverter technology. And really has become the hallmark to study how do you want to run a grid as large as Maui's with only that technology. And some of the new requirements of the new capabilities that we're leveraging from these inverters, including black start capability, are some of the things that the entire industry is learning from what we're trying to do on the island of Maui.
Thanks, Colton. Fred, do you have anything to add to that?
I think I don't think I could say it any better than that, but it's exactly as Colton's saying. Maui's on the forefront here, I would say. There's another project in Australia that is a large scale battery, but grid forming inverters really is what we're talking about here, that you can actually do all the services that the grid needs, the circulating current, the synthetic inertia and all of that. And I believe the DOE recently awarded $25 million to a company in the US to advance that technology further. So with the DOE investing in it and to see that it's going in Hawaii, it really shows how on the cutting edge Hawaii actually is and Maui is.
Zach, I did want to add one thing, because I didn't say it specifically in my presentation, but the aspiration, or one of the aspirations that comes from virtual power plants, is to eliminate or reduce peaker plants. And so it was something in that question that I heard, can it, reduce, I guess, fossil fuel generation? Can batteries reduce fossil fuel generation? And so in our case, the idea would be at a minimum, you stop building new peaker plants. And the best result would be that we retire existing peaker plants, because we can get that same generation from batteries, because it's a relatively short period of time. And it's for those are the most, typically those plants have the worst CO2 contribution, or the worst sort of environmental impacts. And so that's something that we're hoping our program can help achieve.
Sure, and I mean, in addition to that, I think that the peaker plants they're not by nature, right? They're not utilized as much. So you're spending a lot of money and stuff, building materials and stuff on something that's not used as regularly, because it's only when it's needed.
Yeah, 100%.
Brad, there's a few comments wondering if people are interested in the battery swell program. Do you have an email address or something that I can type into the Facebook comments? Brad, you're mute.
Yes, I'll give you my swell address is fine. I can type it in the chat.
But type it, if people want to see it, tell it to me and I'll put, type it in the chat and I'll put it into Facebook.
Yeah.
I had a question that I think is for Colton and Todd. And I think that HECO and the PUC have been sensitive over the last couple of years to some of the issues that Todd raised about communities kind of not being consulted in advance for larger utility scale impacts that are impactful. And I know that some of the newer PPAs have, and even the RFPs have kind of community consultation type of requirements in them, even in the bidding, pre-negotiation stage, and then throughout the PPA process. And that's something that PUC has been sensitive to. Nonetheless, it seems like there still are issues, and notwithstanding those efforts, communities, haven't been consulted in a way that in several cases that they would have liked to have been consulted. And I'm wondering, it sounds like Hawaiian Electric and Todd and the Molokai folks have been engaged in a process over a long period of time now. And I'm wondering, you may not have an answer for this, Colton, but I think the question is, has anything that's come out of that process of what, the Molokai folks are doing, are there lessons that you can take that Hawaiian Electric or all of us can take about how to better engage communities in the front end that we could then apply on a going forward basis, so that communities really are effectively, consulted and involved in the process from the outset? I mean, I feel like the Molokai stuff has been happening kind of a little bit after the RDG phase 2, was out. And so I guess that's the question: are there any lessons learned there? And it's to both Colton and Todd. Do you have thoughts about what could we all do better to make sure that happens on a going forward basis?
Yeah, I'll start, and Todd, please jump in. So taking a step back, under the procurement rules that we need to follow, especially for the more recent RFPs, what we call the stage 1 and stage 2 RFPs that we conducted. The process really starts off with, which I think gets to your question, Zach, where the utility identifies the characteristics and the amount of renewable energy we're looking to see, but makes a whole number of different technologies that can qualify to fulfill that. And we do it in a way where an independent power producer who's interested in participating in this procurement can choose to site their project and their bid pretty much in any location, right? Taking into account, land zoning, communities, distance to utility transmission or distribution, things like that, but ultimately are free to select where they want to place their project when they're submitting a proposal. And that process can lead to broad and wide participation by many folks. It doesn't preclude any technology from participating, and really tries to leverage the ability of developers to find innovative, new, and creative solutions that ultimately we hope will deliver the lowest cost renewable solutions to our customers. That's great. Those are noble objectives, but inherently by that sort of approach and process, one of the things that does come out of that is that the procurement process largely leaves out communities from the discussion of where projects should be sited, what kind of technologies are appropriate, what size should they be, and things like that, right? And those kinds of really important attributes don't surface until quite a ways down in the procurement process. And I think that has led to many, I think, of the challenges and issues that we've seen and are seeing. In contrast, for our work with Molokai, it actually begins before CBRE, where Sharon Suzuki, Matt McNeff, Elena Shiva, and a lot of other folks would, on a regular basis, meet with various members from the Molokai community and listen, even though we weren't planning to conduct an RFP at that moment in time. But we were trying to understand what the perspectives were from various community members for the island of Molokai, and ultimately with the intent of using that in the development of plans for the island. I think we were very, very fortunate as we were developing the framework for community-based renewable energy, and I think CBRE is the perfect vehicle for this because it is a program specifically to create renewable energy opportunities for a community, where on the island of Molokai, timing and circumstances were perfect, where Todd and others from the Molokai community, building upon the relationships they've had with folks at Maui Electric, would reach out to them, talk to them, reach out to the Public Utilities Commission as well, and said, hey, can we take a different approach to a procurement process? And instead of following the approach that are largely written in the competitive bidding framework that we need to follow, can we have a process where there's more discussion and engagement with a local community, or in this case, the island of Molokai, to help shape what will ultimately be the requirements of what Hawaiian Electric seeks when it goes for its RFP. And I think that was sort of the magic sauce that helped to create a good discussion to look at, amongst other things, how from a process standpoint, can you change things around so you can have the right discussions at the right time, rather than to have the right discussions when perhaps it might be too late, right? Or where a lot of the options are no longer available to folks. And so that changes a lot of things. I think Todd can talk about how that really changes the community discussion, but I'll tell you, it really changes how we at the utility think about our role in a procurement as well, right? Where we were largely hands-off and to many of those important decisions that were being made by individual developers, to one now to say, hey, we're part of the community as well. Let's have a discussion now up front so that we make sure that when we go and seek proposals, that ultimately what gets delivered stands a better chance of meeting the needs of their respective communities. Todd?
Awesome. Thank you, Colton. Yeah, I agree with your assessment totally, Colton. To me, this green renewable energy future is super exciting. All of the stuff you guys are talking about, this technology side of stuff, is super geeked out. The amount of challenges and hurdles that, thanks to technology, we've been able to overcome is pretty amazing. Yeah. But the process is still status quo. The process is still led by the utility, and it's from the top down, and that's no fault of the utility. That's just the way things have always been done. And so where there's all this ingenuity in technology, I want to see the same level of ingenuity in creating a better system and getting the public up front. And making sure that the way that these RFPs work out, that there's some kind of community equity, that there's consent built in here, that there's partnerships and community building. That's and to talk in terms of metrics, everything is based on the bottom line right now. Everything is based on a dollar, right? And the cheapest project wins. But what about other metrics, right? What about choosing ethically based, batteries and solar panels? What about when you're building culture or creating community equity? Can those metrics start to be, can we start to see some of those metrics in some of these RFPs and some of these projects and stuff like that? So I think you can, I think what we're talking about is rebuilding, let's get rid of the status quo, right? Let's replace, let's look for the opportunities. How can we replace some of these older siloed development, top-down style of business doings? How can we look for opportunities in there and get the community in there? And in terms of the community, we need more leadership from the community. We need more representation. We need community energy plans that are island-wide. That are also the size of our ahupu'a, that represents the neighborhoods that we lived in. Make sure that we have energy resiliency in those neighborhoods. So make sure that these energy plans don't make sense from a utility standpoint, make sure that these energy plants that are being built, in our backyards make sense from a community standpoint. And so to me, that's where I would love to see some ingenuity happen in the space. Thank you.
Thanks, Todd and Colton. I think sort of piggybacking a little bit off of that thought, this is, I think, going to be for Brad and Fred, which is, Todd, you mentioned, the selection of materials going into that. One of the questions on Facebook is lithium ion batteries are not very environmentally friendly, especially at grid scale. Any thoughts on other storage technologies for Hawaii? Who's going to get stuck with disposing of these battery systems when they expire? And so, obviously most of I think all of the phase 2 utility scale projects have a battery storage component or are standalone battery systems in a couple instances. And Brad, for Swell, I guess you guys are not installing the batteries, but you're leveraging those. So, I mean, what do you guys think about the disposal of these batteries, and are there other alternatives down the road that are better?
Well, I think I could start off with that. One of the slides that I was including did show what I was noting as a long duration energy storage, but really it could be for any duration. But what the market is really opening up to, and folks are investing a lot in, are alternatives, and usually in this storage media. The examples I was giving are sort of to give 3 different looks at some ideas that are out there. There are many ideas, but the ones I noted was Malta, which is it's a startup that started out of Google, Google's moonshot factory, and they're employing molten salt. A molten salt, like a nitrate molten salt, is a fertilizer. Essentially the same fertilizer you would use, except for in a high quality grade. And they would use that continually and heat it up, cool it, heat it up and cool it, and run an energy storage system that way. It's called pumped heat energy storage. And then I noted also Antora Energy. They're pioneering a thermal photovoltaic concept where essentially they have a very hot material that when exposed to the thermal PV, you can discharge the energy. So you charge it up and get it very hot that way. And then Form Energy uses essentially a oxidation process to store energy, where you reduce it and then oxidize a metal. All of these, of course, are a little bit further out there. I would say that Malta's nearing the phase where they'll deploy a grid scale project in the near future. But those are some options that don't have some of the concerns that folks have with lithium ion batteries. And then to address lithium ion batteries, the view I have on that is, we're looking at something that is in the, it's really deploying quickly. The options for repurposing lithium ions, coming up with concepts to recycle lithium ion batteries and such, are really going to advance quickly too, as that need grows. So I do think that lithium ion batteries will, have a way to deal with disposal for sure. But at the same time, I see other options opening up.
So I put in the chat, Zach, you can throw this in there. Tesla does have a link. It's a little bit generic in terms of recycling their batteries, but they do have an intention to have you return the batteries to one of their service centers, and they have, their own recycling program for their batteries. I think when I took a little break from my last company before I went to work for Swell, and I was involved with a group called Recycle PV Solar. There's a huge issue nationally and internationally as we transition to renewables. There's millions and millions and millions of solar panels that are going to need recycling, and we don't have a good plan to do that. And the same thing goes for batteries as well. And it's not just stationary batteries, right? It's electric vehicles. So this is, I think, something that is going to get solved. I think recycling batteries is going to be easier to solve than recycling PV panels because the materials in the batteries has more value. So just like aluminum cans are easy to recycle because aluminum has value, or steel, I think, you know, lithium ion is a valuable material, and I think that they'll tend to be recycled. But we've got a big issue with PV panels, and Europe is doing it right. And I can throw a link in there as well. But like other industries, sometimes there's a fee that's attached to the product that, you know, helps support the recycling effort, because commercially you can't really recycle PV panels, especially in the state of Hawaii. Ship them to a place where you can have a recycling center. You can kick out the glass and recycle the aluminum, but this is a big issue, and it's not just an issue in Hawaii. All things said, though, it's better than gas.
Hey, Zach, this is Colton. I think part of the question was around disposal. And so I just wanted to share with everyone that the contracts that we have in place today, these new contracts for grid scale renewable projects, the disposal of the removal and disposal of those components are part of their contract, right? So as a project developer builds and operates a project for 20, 25, 30 years, part of that deal, part of that contract is they have to go and remove all of those facilities, so they just don't abandon some solar panels. Now, that doesn't fully address the recycle component to it, but at least you know, people aren't going to be walking away, leaving equipment behind.
Okay. Thanks, Colton.
One other note too is that, like, it's complicated. So lithium ion batteries, when you ship them here, are a hazardous material. They have to be shipped at a higher cost. Even if we're shipping them inter-island to a recycling center, say on Oahu, like there is that cost as well. And the same thing goes for PV panels in California. When we were looking into it, like, you couldn't just necessarily, like, you had to even truck them to a recycling center at a higher cost because they're considered a hazardous material. So I did throw in the chat Recycle PV Solar as a website that's got some good information on it.
Thanks, Brad. One quick question here. Do you need high-speed 5G internet capacity in order to use the Swell service?
Connectivity is an issue, but every Tesla battery has a gateway with its own cell card in it. So if you own a Tesla battery, you already have a unique cell, like that battery, if you know it or not, is already communicating with Tesla, and that's how they push updates. If that is an area where the cell reception is bad, then you could go, you know, we could connect it to a landline, and there's workarounds, but it shouldn't be a problem in most areas.
Thanks, Brad. One other question here, and I think this is going to be probably Colton, Fred, and Todd. Where does one find out about starting a grid scale PV project? And so I guess, you know, to break, I mean, Colton, you can give the HECO website, I think, has a lot of information on what, you know, what's out there. But I mean, certainly the phase 2 community-based renewable energy program is open, right? And, you know, I don't know if you have any planned, I mean, I think there's no reason why a community couldn't bid on a larger utility scale project, you know, also as a co-op. You know, I know the Big Island RFP is forthcoming at some point, but maybe you guys could talk about what the options are for grid scale PV projects.
Yeah, I think you covered most of it, Zach. So we are launching what's called phase 2 of our CBRE program for all islands. They'll vary in size. And one thing to note for the question that's asked, CBRE offers a lot of flexibility in the size of these systems. So if an individual or a community is interested in participating as a developer, they have a lot of options on how large of a project that they want to do, you know, which is a little bit different from a typical grid scale system. So they can be large grid scale systems depending upon the island size, but they can be local distribution connected, very small systems as well. There's a streamlined contracting process. In fact, it's a standard tariff to do that. So that's always an option that folks can also pursue in addition to larger systems. And again, this second phase of our CBRE program is something that we're doing on all of our islands. In the case of the Big Island, as you mentioned, Zach, we have been asked by the Public Utilities Commission to begin the process of conducting a stage 3 RFP for grid scale renewables. So we're still going through the process in working with the PUC and other stakeholders in scoping that RFP and getting approval from the commission around that scope. But that information is all available online. It's in a docket as well if you're interested. And it wouldn't be too soon for someone who may be based on the Big Island or wanting to do something on the Big Island to look at that to begin the process of seeing whether that's something they want to participate in. Those are I think the major near-term opportunities that are there before us.
Colton, we like more CBRE in Hawaii if can.
Yeah.
We agree that that the project, especially from a community standpoint, if we're gonna try to do a project like this, has allowed us a lot of flexibility. It has allowed us in the door and at the seat at the front of the process. And I would really hate to see other islands, smaller communities like ours, have to compete over CBRE programs. So I think it would be great to have a CBRE option for every community and every neighborhood. Thank you.
Fred, do you have anything to add?
Well, I'm thinking about the question a little bit more. Just the where does someone start and such. I was thinking back to when I was doing work with the county, and some of the times I went out and talked to Todd. Even the obstacles in front of someone, and it's amazing. Todd is breaking some of those down, which is wonderful. How do you actually get started? How are you going to build it? How are you going to source panels? How are you going to have the knowledge to do that? I think also Todd is probably sourcing, legal counsel for making sure the contracts are going. But then the hard part is where are you getting land from? And that's something that, from a community standpoint is, an important part. And I was, hoping to see more of, let's say, county help there, where the county would say, projects like, Todd's, that the county should put forward land that, working with Housing and Human Services, says that these projects actually go to directly help those who actually need help. And for that, you can contract for, county land to reduce the cost further, so that this cost is more, or the savings is greater on the CBRE program. So I think, I think that just my thoughts on that, really are, it's coming down to, how can you be competitive, and how can you bring forward a low cost project so that the credit that you're getting from a CBRE program is beneficial to those folks in the community.
Fred, I just wanted to say real quick, thank you for that forward-looking, advice. I think that's really good. And just to reiterate, Molokai isn't just doing this for ourselves. We have reached out. We have statewide discussions probably twice a month, energy justice discussions. So if you guys want to look us up at hoahu.coop or hoahu.com and get in touch with me, we can be a part of that bigger discussion. And in terms of getting started, I'm serious. If we can help any community out there, if they want to copy and paste our articles of incorporation, all the gnarly stuff that took us hours and days and months and years to do, we can help you guys streamline and really get started more quickly. So we also have a vibrant network of energy specialists and experts and developers that are all kind of, really stoked to see that, good work is being done in the space. The intention is there to have that equity for our smaller communities throughout Hawaii. So I think there's a lot of people excited to get ready in that space.
It definitely, Todd, I agree. You guys are building a wonderful model, and the EJ issues, or the environmental justice issues that you guys are tackling, and doing it as a community and doing it at scale, a scale that makes sense for your community. It's a great thing. Good job.
I had kind of a follow-up question on the phase 2 CBRE, because I think that what Todd and the Molokai folks doing is amazing. And I'd like to see other communities be able to take advantage of the CBRE program in that same way. Am I right in thinking that the CBRE phase 2 though it's all price-based, right? As opposed to the phase 1 and phase 2 RFPs, which had a mix of price and non-price factors. And we've heard Todd talk about, hey, it ought to be more than just straight price, right? Like the community, and even you, Colton, you were saying, Hawaiian Electric wanted to be involved as participant in the community and give the communities this ability to do it. And Todd saying, hey, I don't know if we might not be able to bid in, but we nonetheless, it might be the right project. And my recollection is that the CBRE phase 2 with that kind of auctioning system is really a pure price, decision. Is that right, or am I misremembering that?
Yeah, so they're like our larger procurements for the larger CBRE programs in the bid evaluation phase. There is a price and non-price component, but to be clear, even on the pricing side, that's the pricing evaluation between what the developer or the subscribing organization for the CBRE project is pricing their project to Hawaiian Electric, right? There is a separate pricing that's being created between the developer and their subscribers. And that's what makes it a little bit more complicated. But under our proposed CBRE, in fact, we just did a filing today for those larger ones. There are now for some of the smaller programs, because it's more tariff-based, streamline that process, not have to go through a more time-consuming and expensive procurement cycle. There's a tariff approach. So in that case, the price is the price. Right. And it's a choice of a developer whether they want to pursue a project at that price.
Thanks, Colton. One question from here, and Brad already kind of put in an answer, but Colton mentioned that HECO has options for rapid hookups of rooftop home solar. Are those options available for Kihei South Maui, where there is a lot of demand, or only some options available? I've heard complaints there. Brad noted a Quick Connect program. I'll throw a link to that in the Facebook chat. But Colton, do you have any? I guess is this Quick Connect program limited by saturation or anything like that, or is it available everywhere?
Yeah, so the Quick Connect program is available for projects that would be connected on circuits that have a certain amount of hosting capacity remaining. In other words, they aren't at or above what the circuit in its current configuration is able to connect. And so if you are submitting an application or it's planning to do a project on a circuit that is filled, then I believe that location would not be able to do a Quick Connect application. Having said that, we have a pretty significant program that we filed with the Commission. It's the second phase of our grid modernization work. That in part, the first phase is around deploying advanced metering infrastructure and telecommunications infrastructure. But the second phase includes installing technologies within our system, within our grid, that can increase the ability of our various circuits to integrate distributed energy systems and maintain the power quality on those circuits.
All right. Thanks.
I was just looking at the location value map, and most of Kihei seems to be in the red zone, meaning not a lot of, there's probably might not qualify, but there are sections of Kihei that do. So I guess that link would probably be helpful. But that said, from what I've heard, approvals for projects seem to be happening pretty quickly. So I wouldn't let that be like hold anyone back from trying to go solar.
Yeah, and to the point of, I think Zach, you talked about, or Brad, it might have been you, talked about metrics. So with the going live of performance-based regulation, one of the metrics by which we are being measured by the Public Utilities Commission, and really actually have an incentive around it, is around average interconnection times for DER applications. So the Public Utilities Commission has made it a priority as one of the key ways to measure our performance.
Okay, I don't think we have any more questions on Facebook, and it is 7:59. So looks like it ended up perfect. I want to thank everyone for tuning in and asking questions, and I really want to thank Fred and Colton and Brad and Todd for their time this evening. I appreciate it. This was super informative. I know we bounced around a lot between distributed and utility scale and CBRE and community stuff. But I think I think we had a lot of good discussions, and appreciate all of you guys showing up and sharing your time with us.
You're welcome. Thanks for including us.
Yeah,
All right.
Thanks for hosting, and thanks to Sierra Club.
Yeah, thank you so much, Zach.
All right. Thank you guys. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Aloha.